Thanks everyone for joining. I know some people are still logging in, but we do appreciate our returning webinar viewers. And if you're new to the webinars, we appreciate you coming for the first time. For all my newbies, we're going to go through a presentation where Anthony will provide some content. I will provide some comic relief, maybe some good content as well. And we'll do 30 minutes, and then we'll open it up for Q&A at the end. During the presentation, please feel free to type questions in the Q&A box, and we will address those when we get finished. We do this once a month, and so definitely come check out what we're doing and what we're talking about. We always have what we feel is really good content and a good use of your time. And so I'm Justin Rowland, the Vice President of National Sales. There'll be a slide at the end. You can always reach out to us at info@theformalforce to get more information about Formal Force. But these webinars are about really what's going on in the 340B industry. This is not a selling topic. This is about what affects you as a covered entity 340B program expert participant. And so without further ado, I'll hand it off to Anthony Velasquez.
Thank you, Justin. Really appreciate that introduction. I want to echo, our goal is to do these webinars once a month for 30 minutes and really try to jam-pack the webinar with useful information that after you attend this, you feel like you learned something, you feel like there's something actionable that you can do. So that's our heart. That's where we're coming from. As Justin shared, my name is Anthony Velasquez. I'm the Chief Product Officer at PharmaForce. I've been in the 340B space for over a decade. For those of you that are new, we've been doing this. I want to say we're going on a little bit over a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, where we have been meeting every month and doing these webinars, just trying to educate the 340B community on ways that you can make your 340B program, keep track of the manufacturer restrictions. Most recently, we really have been focusing a lot of time on the potential legislation at a federal level and all the activity at the state level, just trying to be aware of what's coming, how we can support, how we can help, how entities can be involved, and all those sorts of things. So again, thank you so much for joining. I want to go ahead and get started because I have some really, really good information that I have. I just posted on my LinkedIn, and some of you saw that I got to speak with an insider who helped get the state of Mississippi's 340B contract pharmacy protection bill to the governor's desk. So I have a lot of insight from him that I'm really excited to share with you all today. So with that said, let's go ahead and get started. Let me go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, so rule number one, if you have joined any one of these webinars in the past, it is nothing in this presentation should be constituted as legal advice, okay? We are just sharing information that is publicly available. We are sharing best practices and things that we have learned from myself working at a 340B covered entity. Justin has been a CFO at a 340B covered entity. And now we work for a third-party administrator, but we're able to share that perspective of both sides, and that's our goal, is to share our perspective with many of you subject matter experts that are on these webinars. All right, so the agenda for today, we got a jam-packed agenda, but we always make it on time. Number one, we want to talk about manufacturer restrictions update. So what's going on? Have these stopped? There's a few that have come out recently in 2024 that I want to share with you all. I want to talk about the Arkansas court victory. When we did the webinar last month, I had already prepared the content to talk about the Sustained 340B Act and the 340B Patients Act. And then this ruling, came like a couple days right before the webinar, and I really couldn't address it in detail. So I'm going to do that today. We're going to talk about the state level bills, what's going on there. We're going to talk about the federal legislation and what happened with the comment period and all of that. And then we're going to talk about the success story of what happened in the state of Mississippi, how you can be part of championing a better future for the 340B program in your state and for your covered entity. So let's go ahead and start with number one. I chuckled at this photo. Someone on our marketing team chose this photo, but this looks like a pharmaceutical rep. I'm sharing with people, but Here's what's going on. So there are 4 new manufacturer restrictions in 2024. 4. Um, I'm not going to go into the full details of all of these because, as you all know, these things are really complicated. One of them, the taquita one, almost breaks down like 4 or 5 different effective dates based on different NDCs. So they're very complicated letters, and operationalizing them can be difficult as well. But I encourage you to pay attention to these. Make sure that you're on top of it. Make sure your entity, if impacted or affected, is monitoring these. But the taquita letter, there was actually 2 of them. These allow the grantees to be exempt, so they apply mostly to hospitals. One of them, I would say the primary letter that was sent out on December the 15th, made it so that it was effective January 22nd, 2024, where some taquita products would not be available for 340B pricing across your entire contract pharmacy network. They do require data submission. There's 2 letters. There's the one on 12/15. There was an updated one on February the 23rd that was breaking out individual products with different effective dates. So those are all things that we can provide these for you if you email us at info@thefarmfirst.com. I can put all 4 of these. It's actually 5 because the taquita, there's 2 of them. We can put all these in an email and send it to you. Just send us a quick note to say, hey, can you please share the manufacturer restrictions letters with us. Liquidia is another one. This was interesting. This one went into effect April 1st, 2024. Affects all entity types, requires data submission. The interesting thing about this is the drug is actually pending FDA approval. I haven't heard that it has been FDA approved, so this was, one that came out but probably doesn't impact many people. Genentech, that goes into effect May 1st, 2021. So the grantees are exempt. If you're a hospital, there is a Genentech manufacturer restriction that's going to go into effect in May. So encourage you to do what you can to designate the contract pharmacy and follow the instructions of that. In the meantime, there's another one. I'm not gonna say that name because I don't know who would have came up with a name like that. But the other pharmaceutical company as well, May the 1st, 2024, applies to all entity types, and data submission is required. So as you can see, these have not slowed down. I mean, there's so many. I think we're up to 32 manufacturers that have some sort of restriction. So these have continued, and manufacturers have continued to really have just a lot of momentum in continuing to provide manufacturer restrictions. But I do think that the tide is turning a little bit, and I'm going to share that with you in just a second, where I kind of see the tide turning, and perhaps there'll be a pushback the other way around. Now, this is really important to all of this. Okay, this is very, very important to all. This is very new. This is only a few weeks old, where the state of Arkansas was sued by pharma, and as it relates to what the state of Arkansas, a bill that passed, Act 1103. It's actually not new. It's a couple years ago. And essentially, back in 21, Act 1103 in the state of Arkansas passed and was essentially the first of its kind 340B contract pharmacy protection bill. That's what these bills are called. And these bills are designed to basically, at a state level, restrict manufacturers from coming to a state and saying, we are going to apply these restrictions to your contract pharmacy network. So Arkansas was sort of, the first with this type of bill. It's interesting because there's an enforcement part of all of this in the state of Arkansas, where non-compliant drug makers are fined $50,000 for every 6 months of non-compliance with providing 340B drugs to entities in that state. That then, there was a lawsuit related to that. Novo Nordisk then, had a lawsuit, and then there was an agreement that was reached between the state of Arkansas and Novo Nordisk. So that there is so much legal activity around this that is really difficult to keep up. But the big news that I want to highlight is, although a court had already affirmed that Act 1103 was indeed legal, and that the state of Arkansas had the right to do this. After it went to an appeal, the decision was reached on March the 12th. So just recently, about a month ago, where the Eighth Circuit U.S. Appellate Court confirmed 3-0 that Arkansas does have the right to regulate the distribution of 340B drugs in the state of Arkansas. So this is huge. The reason why I'm saying this is huge and why a lot of us are on, are on a big high over this is because some of the states, it's believed that some of the state legislatures across the country were kind of waiting for the outcome of this to see if it was even worth the fight, because they have to go through multiple legislatures, then they have to get their governor to sign it. And it's actually a pretty huge task to do that. So I think states were looking back. There's about 26 states that have either proposed or have passed a bill that has contract pharmacy protections in it. And I think the others were kind of waiting for this to happen. So this is a huge win for the 340B program, for those of us that care about patients getting 340B drugs and entities being able to serve those patients. So this is huge. It just came out this month that Pharma X's the court to rehear the case again, and this would just be and probably never ending legal battles. I must say too, there are a list of manufacturers who, because of this, have started reversing their restrictions in the state of Arkansas and others. So be on the lookout for that. Be on the lookout for those letters from your manufacturers that are reversing the 340B network restrictions. So, Justin, that was a lot to unpack, but I think I did it, Justin. I think justice. I tried my best to really unpack everything, but this is kind of like the big news that everyone's talking about.
Yeah.
You heard anything on this?
I mean, no, not really, other than what you said, but everyone, as I always say, this needs to get in front of your state legislature.
Yeah.
You have to push it. Like Anthony said, a friend of ours in Mississippi was pushing this, help get this passed in Mississippi. And so individuals at these covered entities, or as a group, you can get this done. We're up to 4 states, I guess now, so it can be done. I'm pushing on Alabama as we speak. I have people that I know in the state legislature that I'm pushing on every day. Where is it at? Where is it at? So just keep pushing.
Good. No, I totally agree. This is huge. Now I want to go into the next, and is tracking these state level bills. Okay, so many of you are on this call. Maybe you're from a state that is working on something like this. At the end of this webinar, I will be sharing a call to action. Like, what are things that you can do based on what we're hearing in states that were successful? What are things that you can do to be a part of this? Because I think those of you that are on this call, those entities that are caring for patients, who patients are impacted, whose hospitals are maybe at the risk of closing, you all can play a critical role in this, and not think like, I'm just a 340B coordinator at a little hospital in, rural Alabama. No, you can play a role in this. And that's kind of like the message that I want to leave, and kind of like our theme of really championing a better future, is that we all can play a role in this and have an impact, a positive impact, in protecting patients and our covered entities. Okay, so the 340B pharmacy protection bill. So states are leading the fight. This is where it's at right now. I think this is clear. I am less and less optimistic about that anything is going to happen at a federal level. So the battle is at the state level. It is clear that there's a path here to help undo some of the manufacturer restriction impact, which is in the billions of dollars across entities across the country. There's 26 states that have introduced or passed a bill on 340B pharmacy protections. These are the states right here that have actually passed a bill, although the effectiveness of these bills are later down the road. But Arkansas, as I mentioned, Louisiana, West Virginia, and now Mississippi, who have signed these bills, and I wholeheartedly believe there's many more to come. I want to give a special thanks to our friends at 340B Report, who we sponsor, and have helped us distribute this webinar. But I want to shout them out for their work on this and keeping track of all this. It's a very good map of where things are, how things are going. So as you can see here in yellow, you have the bills that have been introduced. You have in blue the bills that have passed, and then you have in that turquoise color the bills that have cleared a legislative chamber. I've been following the Virginia one because that seemed like it actually passed unanimously, if I remember correctly, in the legislature. But then the governor wanted to add an amendment to it, and now the state legislature has the ability to override the governor. So there's some stuff going on in Virginia too that if you're not a part of, I highly encourage you to be a part of that conversation. But there are these other states where there is, that we know of, no activity or no bill have been introduced, and hopefully that's in the works. Justin, I was just thinking this morning about Pennsylvania and work that I have done in Pennsylvania in the past as it related to the ADAP program and other things when I worked at a grantee. So I'm going to try to reach out to some of my connections in the state of Pennsylvania and see how we can help in any way to to help conversations in that in that world. All right, so let's move on. Federal legislation update. So just remember last time we talked about this Sustained 340B Act, right? And I gave an overview and I kind of gave a background of what was going on. This had been in the works for months. This is actually a bipartisan effort of folks in the Senate, Republicans and Democrat, that are working together on understanding the 340B program more. If you all remember, I was able to, I don't know how this happened, but I was able to have a conversation with a company that was actually working very closely with the people that were writing the bill, and were sharing with me how it is very critical. The biggest part that the manufacturers want in the bill is the national clearinghouse. So I had some in-depth conversations with people that are really close with folks that are working with the senators on this bill. And what I got, the insight that I got, is that manufacturers really want the national clearinghouse. In their analysis, the duplicate discount issue is costing manufacturers around $10 billion a year. It is a $10 billion issue. The reason, and again, this is what I was told by an insider that's working on all of this, and is much closer to those high level conversations than I am. But the reason is the national clearinghouse is the one thing that will help manufacturers not pay a duplicate discount to PBMs, covered entities, etc. So this is something that I learned a ton from. It sounds like the battle that they are choosing are against the entities, but really there is another battle, which is the PBMs, and we're just, entities are in the middle of that fight, unfortunately. So there was a 51-page draft bill that was released that had all sorts of things in it. Some of it was good. Some of it were things we had never seen before, like the provider reporting requirements to the federal government, like the user fee. Well, the user fee had been talked about for years back, even with the mega guidance. There were talks of the user fee, and it seems like every budget year that comes up, but it never passes. But so there were some things about the bill that were good. I think consensus was that if that bill that was drafted will be passed, there will be some good at it, because it does undo the limitations to the contract pharmacy restrictions. Now, as I had shared, the bill introduced by Representative Matsui in the House is my favorite bill, because it's clean. It just addresses the contract pharmacy restrictions, and it doesn't go into all these other areas. But this one seems to be having a lot of steam because it is a bipartisan bill. So now there was an RFI, as if you remember, I gave you the email of who you can reach out, how you can submit the RFI last month, right before it was due. I think it was like 2 weeks before it was due. I shared the email with you all of where you can submit the RFI. that the senators were really interested in knowing how everyone felt about the patient definition. So in the draft bill, the patient definition, it was blank, and it was an area where the senators really wanted to understand, what does the community of providers and other entities involved in the 340B program think about the patient definition. And the update on this has been very interesting. So here's the latest on it. So remember, the comments were due April 1st, as I mentioned. The patient definition has now sort of been at the center of the debate among providers. If you're in this space, you will know that there has been differences of opinion between grantees and hospitals, and sort of like, what's the best patient definition. I think there are some instances where hospitals and grantees are often sort of fighting for the same prescription that the grantee might think is eligible, but the hospital is capturing, etc. So there was some of that even mentioned in the comments submitted by some of these groups. So there's this interesting battle between groups that want to maintain status quo. So that is the current 1996 guidance on the patient definition, the one that we are all familiar with, that we all know, and many of us can probably recite word by word. But it looks like in general, the hospitals are in support of keeping status quo. So 340B Health, who many of you know, maybe all of you know, is a organization that represents a lot of 340B hospitals. Their sort of comments and public statements have supported a more of a stance that sides with keeping status quo. American Hospital Association, same thing. America's Essential Hospitals, same thing, of really just saying, look, the 340B program is fine. The patient definition is fine. That's how we have been operating. We understand it. That's how hospitals execute their compliant 340B program today. But there's also the opposite. So there's also the opposite. I am in no way trying to put hospitals against grantees. I actually think it's bad to do that, because I think we have power and unity in the numbers. And I don't mean to sound cheesy when I say that, but I think it's true. I think in general it's true. And if there's division between hospital providers and grantee providers, I don't think that's good for the overall goal and mission of ensuring that the 340B program continues to support entities. So, yeah, go ahead, Justin. What were you gonna say?
Yeah, so the division, I would imagine that the with the old definition, because there's no reporting requirements, I guess, to the
I
that would
think
have to be.
I think it's more, if you ask me for my opinion, I think it's more like, once you open the door to change things, it could also be to the the net negative for entities. I
No,
think
I agree. I mean, I think,
that's what I think. I think the hospital association is saying, look, status quo is what we know. It's what HRSA audits, and if we open the door for changing the patient definition, it could go either way, right? It could go the Genesis way, but it could also go a much tighter way, which is, even language too, which is interesting, saying that every prescription should tie to the reason for care. So like 340B eligibility is tied to, you have to have seen the patient for diabetes, for example, in order to capture an insulin, right? But if that patient was also on another chronic med, maybe it kind of hinted at, maybe that's not eligible
no, I
because,
got you.
you know what I mean? Like, it's,
Agreed. And if you got, the most terrifying part of this is pharma is on the new patient definition, and then we're supporting on the new patient definition. So yes, there has to be maybe there has to be some give and take. I don't honestly believe there should be any give and take, but if there has to be, I get that. But being on the same side as them, I think you're right, Anthony. It's when you start changing things, it can be, I don't think any grantees, when you and I work on the grantee side, I don't think that, either one of us would have said, I want to change the patient definition. I think we felt good living inside of that patient definition,
yeah.
use those funds, to expand access to care. Yeah, I don't like the change piece of it, just to be honest.
Yeah. Again, my goal is just to present the facts as they stand. I think the hospitals, grantees, and all entities should be together and join together in this fight. But there is and have been for the last 18 months a kind of a little bit of a break in medicine. We've seen that at the conference and stuff like that. So anyways, so that is the latest on this. Okay, so the comments were submitted. If you submitted a comment, thank you. This is really important for providers to submit comments to this. So, let's see what happens, and I will keep you all updated as we learn more. All right. So now the last part, I think is the last bullet point that I want to talk about, and my favorite section that I wanted to discuss here is championing a better future. So what does that look like? Okay, so let's talk about the state of Mississippi. I got the chance to talk to a gentleman that was part of the core group leading the effort to get a 340B pharmacy protection bill to the governor's desk. Okay. And I got some really good insight from him of how that happened from the beginning, where there was nothing and all there was is, hey, Arkansas and Louisiana and these other states are kind of contemplating this. What are we doing here? And kind of got an insight into that story. So I'm going to share with you what he shared with me. He said to me, he said, there's a ton of power in a narrative and a story. And I was like, so what did that look like? And it really was encapsulating the constituents, the patients, the hospitals that were at risk of closing, and putting that in a way that is clear, in a way that even, he was even sharing with me once that information kind of was put together, some of that stuff was even a little bit emotional, just to see that if nothing is done, how many hospitals were at risk of actually closing. The state of Mississippi, I have actually been there recently. Is very rural, and it is not uncommon for you to have one hospital, and that hospital to cover miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and miles of area, and sometimes be the only place to get care for 30, 40 an hour, 2 hours. Sometimes I've heard stories of patients having to drive 2.5 hours, 3 hours for specialist care. So our rural healthcare providers are deeply, deeply impacted by the manufacturer restrictions, deeply impacted in a way that it's really hard to tell the story. So he told me, he's like, man, it was so powerful to really tell that story of these hospitals who were, their 340B programs were cut by 30%, 40%. And we're already struggling to stay afloat. So that has been a thing in 340B for a while. I actually talked about that 2 webinars ago. We talked about creating a powerful story and advocating for the 340B program. He talked about there's power in numbers, and power in number of just a power of providers joining together, even competitors. He said, look, even competitor hospitals that compete with one another and kind of see each other as rivals, just coming together and working together, that made a huge impact to those in the legislature, to the governor, to folks that have power in the state. They just saw power in those hospitals coming together and saying, hey, look, we stand together, we have a story, we know patients are going to be hurt by this, and we're asking you to consider this, to educate yourself, to understand what this can do for the state, for constituents. The state associations and 340B roundtables just played a big role in this. So those of you that are on this call, you're listening, you're in one of these states, talk to your hospital association folks, see what they're doing, how can you help. Join 340B roundtables, ask what are we doing in our state to get a 340B protection bill. So partner with the State Hospital Association, the Rural Health Association, like any advocacy group that represents your hospital, partner with them. He actually told me the state pharmacy board had a ton of power in helping pushing this along. So the state pharmacy board can be a partner in backing up this bill, getting it to the governor of the state, He said that himself and another person that was working with him, they sat on the phone and started calling 340B managers and pharmacy directors across other providers and say, hey, are you with us? This is what we're working on. This is what we're doing. So there was a lot, there was a lot of work that went into it. It wasn't easy. We all get to celebrate and say, yeah, Mississippi, go, right? Go Arkansas. But there's a lot of hard work going on behind the scenes. And that could include, folks of you, like some of you that are on this call, finding the right people, finding the right leader who can get you in front of the room with the state legislature or people that will listen to that have power is really important. He told me I was not prepared for the amount of lobbying from pharma and PBMs who showed up in person to the state legislatures, who were actually able to convince some of the members in the legislature against to vote against the pharmacy protection bill. So he said that was very interesting, and he hadn't expected that or witnessed something like that before. So expect some of that. But again, it's a fight for a greater good, and that we all believe in. So I hope you find that story interesting. Justin, something I'm working on is I'm trying to see if I can get a hold of the gentleman that worked for one of the associations who really championed this bill and get him to interview him probably next month. So get him here, interview him, and kind of hear his side of the story. So I'm really looking forward to see if I can make that happen. So I'm working on that to see if I can make that happen. All right. So it's noon. It's 12:01. All right. So let me get to my final slide. Okay. Call to action. Be involved with your state hospital association. Make that today. Put that as a homework item. Write it down. Are you connected? Are you plugged in? Are you on their listings? Are you on their calls? Do you know who they are? I worked at a hospital in Pennsylvania, and I knew a little bit about my state hospital association, participated a little bit, but I could have done a lot more. And so I encourage you all to do that. Connect with other entities in your state. Don't look at everyone as a competitor. I think we just have naturally just look at everyone as a competitor, but connect with people, network with people in your state that are in the 340B program. Create or join the 340B roundtable, because you can make a lot of impact. Have your narrative, have your story. Number of patients impacted, hospitals at risk for closing, stories of patients who are maybe patients of a cash community and are now have to go to a different pharmacy that it's a struggle for them to obtain their prescriptions. All those things are really important to have in your back pocket in order to make an impact as it relates to this. Justin, I think that's it.
We're good. That was great, Anthony. Great info. And we did get one question, which is a great question. So Sandy Clark asked, how do you find out what state legislators have a bill in process? So what states are pushing back? Of those 26 states that you mentioned, I think it was, how do they find that information?
Yeah, so you can look it up on, like, if you type on Google, you can look it up on Google. I
was trying to
find
find
out
it on 340B Health, but
I was gonna say 340B Health or 340B Report are two really good sources of information in the 340B space. If you're not familiar with 340B Report, I would encourage you to look into,
absolutely.
yeah, maybe signing up. Those folks do a great job over there. So I highly encourage you to sign up. There's some really good information that's posted there, and some of this stuff is hard to find. I'm not going to act like it's it's
hidden,
everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of hidden, but yeah, I think
Yeah.
340B Health. I'll text Ted Slavsky and see if he has that information, or if it would put that information out for everyone. I mean, as the following they have on LinkedIn and stuff. I mean, that'd be a good way to get the information out to everyone. That's a good point, Sandy, because some of us know and some of us don't know. And then Sandy also asked, what is a national clearinghouse?
Yeah, so Sandy, great question. So the National Clearinghouse is, so as you might know today, when a patient goes to a contract pharmacy and that prescription is paid by the PBM and that prescription is 340B eligible, you as an entity are getting a 340B discount. And because it meets, patient definition and meets eligibility. At the same time, the PBM might also get a rebate on that medication. And I'm not even talking about Medicaid. I'm just talking about PBMs in general. It could be just a commercial PBM that's getting a rebate on that medication. The manufacturers have no insight and no way to tell if the rebate that they're paying the PBM also was purchased, if that drug was also purchased at 340B. So the National Clearinghouse would be a model by which entities will submit their 340B eligible claims similar to the 340B ESP, but at a required federal level, will submit all of their claims to a clearinghouse who will then communicate to the manufacturers, hey, a 340B pricing was taken on that prescription, don't pay the rebate to the PBM. Or a 340B pricing was not taken on that prescription, so you can pay the rebate to the PBM. So that's what they're trying to put together at a federal level. And again, what I'm hearing from very trusted sources is that that is probably the number one thing that manufacturers want to see happen. Because they have no visibility. The 340B ESP process by which they're operating under now is, I would say not fully effective. I mean, in their view, it's better than nothing is how I would describe it. But the National Clearinghouse will sort of be the process by which they could ultimately eliminate or reduce the risk of duplicate discounts. So I hope that was clear, Sandy. There's a lot of nuances and a lot of details in that, but that's essentially what it would be. It would just be a company now that entities will have to submit data to of every 340B eligible script.
Well, now that the content portion's over, I can do a little sales piece here. So if you are self-funded and you're looking for a PBM that could capture the 340B savings versus the rebate, using that the more higher benefit logic, Phone Force actually connects both. So if our customers are with the TPA and the PBM, we can see at the time of eligibility, is that rebate more valuable? Is that 340B savings more valuable? So just to plug on that side of things, so we won't have that issue. So we're not really, they won't be looking at our PBMs. We'll know
Yeah.
on both sides of it.
And the interesting thing with this is, at least like for a really long time, I thought the duplicate discount issue was really just Medicaid, right? Because that's what that is, what we try to, as 340B entities, you want to not be compliant with Medicaid, fee for service and MCOs, depending on what your state is doing and all that. But the commercial side is actually a really big concern for the manufacturers. So it's interesting. The whole thing is very interesting. I don't know that the National Clearinghouse is the answer, but it's very, very interesting.
All right, Otto has a statement, a question. As a legislator pharmacist in Virginia who owned a contract pharmacy, still worked part-time for FQHC and was once a home office manager for a pharmaceutical manufacturer, I'm interested in being involved. Otto, I think you're perfect. That's the perfect person to be involved. That background is exactly one of the pieces of the puzzle that needs to be put together to go to these state legislatures and tell our story.
Yep. Because the thing with this really is just like the education. Like, I mean, can you imagine trying to explain 340B to legislatures? Like we could barely explain it.
Yeah, my wife still doesn't know what I do. She thinks I'm a drug dealer. I was saying
I don't.
a legal drug dealer or something like that.
Yeah, every time I go to a family party and they tell me what I do, I just say I work in healthcare.
I used to do that too, but I like to tell the story now. Watch people's eyes glaze over, like, what do you do? So, yeah. But yes, Otto, definitely,
Yeah, I'll definitely
involved.
encourage you to do that. I think that is so powerful that you are willing to be a part of that.
The state of Virginia has a great PCA, Primary Care Association. I know our friend David Christian's over there. That's Virginia. So,
Yep.
Otto, if you know David, get in touch with him. I'm sure he could use the help.
Yep.
So last question from Esther. We have Medicare came out with new requirements on 340B meds with specific modifiers. As an FQHC, we bill PPS rate with all meds, et cetera, listed on the claims. And these claims are submitted to our Part A MAC. would you recommend we still add the modifier for the 340B medication?
Yeah, Esther, I'm actually not I'm not informed enough to make a recommendation on that right here on this webinar. So I would love to talk to you about it further, but I'm just not informed enough on that specific situation to make a helpful recommendation. But I appreciate the question. It seems complicated for sure. Like many things in our wonderful 340B space.
Yeah, Esther, if you look at, reach out to info at the Formal Force, both Anthony and I will get that email. And we can, we'll find you an answer.
Yeah.
We're always interested in trying to look these things up, because I'm gonna get this question on a demo at some point, and I'm gonna call Anthony and say, Anthony, remember what Esther said on the call about this? I got asked that question and I totally forgot what it was. So yes,
That's
it will
usually
help
how
us.
it goes. That is usually
That's
how it
right.
goes.
It will help us as well. That's why we listen to our customers, so we can
Yeah.
keep our product up to date and in the best shape for them to use it. And so we love this kind of feedback. So, or these kind of questions. But that's it. Thank you all, for your time today. Look forward to seeing you again, next month. Again, info at the Formal Force, contact us if you'd like to talk about any of our services. But thanks again. Have a great rest of your April.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Bye.